Let's take a look at some of the features in Seesaw that help students share their learning. Some of these you may be familiar with, and some may be new. This is my screen as a teacher, so this looks slightly different than what the students will see. They would add a plus to add something to Seesaw, and this is the screen that they would see. They can add a photo directly, taking it with Seesaw, take a video directly with Seesaw. They can add a drawing page. They can upload a file, a photo, or videos that they have on their device. They can take notes in a notepad, or they can add a link to something that they'd like to share with their learning. Let's start with the drawing page. This is one of my favorite tools that I use to share lessons with my students, but also for them to share their learning with me. It's versatile. It has all of the same tools that are on the page we just looked at, with the exception of the notes. Up here at the top are some buttons that you may or may not be familiar with. We're going to take a look at these first. In this big section where they would be drawing in this area, they have some tools down here at the bottom: an eraser, a sparkly highlighter, a thin marker, and a pencil. I'm going to choose the pencil, and as I choose, that tool pops up. Over here, I'm going to choose the color of the lead or the marker that I'd like to choose, and then I'm going to get ready to draw with that. This button right here is the hide button. So as I'm ready and I've chosen my tool and my color, I can hide everything on the screen. So that leaves me this whole workspace without any of the tools or the other buttons to bother me as I'm working. So I can use this whole space here. I can use this space here without changing the color of my tool. And I can also use this space way down here and draw through this area without worrying about popping one of the other tools up and possibly choosing it by accident. When I finished with my drawing, this button that was the hide button now looks like a tool, and I can tap the tool and my tools come back. The next button at the top I want you to take a look at is this right here. It looks like a magnifying glass, and it is a magnifying glass. I'm going to go ahead and create a label, and I'm just going to type the word blue since that's the color that I used. When I tap the magnifying glass, I'm going to see a small version of my screen right here, and so will the students. If they tap the plus, their screen is going to get larger. So maybe there's something they want to take a closer look at. Maybe they need the print to be a little bit larger for them to see and understand. Once they've looked at something closely, or they've read the print or the information that they need, they can use this magnifying glass and tap it one more time, and their screen becomes the same size it was when the activity started. The second set of buttons up here are forward and backward buttons. Think of them as taking something away that you just added, or adding it back if you realize you want it again. So you can go forward in your movement of your drawing, or you can go backward and erase what you like. So I'm going to tap, and I'm going to draw this line here, and it went through my word. So I'm going to use the back button, and I'm going to get rid of it. But if I decide, oh no, I really wanted it to go through that word, I could add it back onto my drawing. So this is a forward and a back button for your drawing, or an eraser, or a return to what you thought you had erased, but you decided that you wanted. A new part to our labels are the three dots. And if you're familiar with them, there used to be a lot less options when using the three dots on a label. You can also find the three dots, however, on shapes and on photos as well. And the three dots give a lot of options on what to do with each of the labels, or again, the shapes or the pictures. We can delete, as always, and that would get rid of what we have written up here. We could duplicate what we have, And so then we have two of the same. We can add a voice to labels and pictures and shapes now. And I just have to tap voice. I'll get a little place to record. Blue, B-L-U-E. Once I've recorded, it notes here that I've got it, so I'm going to go ahead and listen. Blue, B-L-U-E. And perhaps I don't like that recording. I could go back to it, and now that I have a recording, I could delete it if I didn't want it there. We could add a link to this box if we wanted to add a story, add the history of the color of blue. If we wanted to add a link to a painting that had blue, we would just tap on it, and then we'd enter the website or the blue for our blue. We can also lock these shapes or these pictures or these labels so they do not move. Students, I know in my classroom, find that very helpful. They can lock the size of it so that it doesn't change as they're moving it, but they could lock the whole thing as well so it won't move on the page. And last but not least, they could change the order of the shapes or the photos or the labels that they have. For instance, if I had moved this label here and it was covering part, but I wanted them to kind of be stacked, I could bring one to the front, and now that one's to the front, and I'll bring it back to the back. So there's a lot of choices in the three dots on a label, but also on a shape and a photo as well. You may also notice on this side here that the three dots are still in this choice for options. In these three dots, you can find shapes, changing backgrounds. You can also add a link, and you can also add voice to the whole page. In terms of shapes, there are a lot of choices. There's manipulatives as well, in case you hadn't explored for a while, because there's some new things in here that students can use to share their learning. There's also some awesome backgrounds in this choice. Some can be used for grid work, making graphs, handwriting, and some can be used for backgrounds when creating pictures or photo displays. There's a lot of choices here for students that might be new or might be things that you do recognize. All can be found here in these three dots. The last thing I'd like to show you that my students find helpful when sharing their learning is the recording button itself. That is this button here. Once they tap on it, it's going to give them a countdown, and then at the end of the tools here, an arrow will appear, and they can use it to point out and to share what they're talking about. They can also add writing as they're talking as well. So let's take a look at how this works. I tap on record, and now I'm getting a countdown. And if I activate the arrow once I leave and start moving, my arrow will move. I could spell the word blue, B-L-U-E. I could tell you the letters, B-L-U-E. I could also take my pencil and I could write the letters for you, B-L-U-E. When students are sharing their learning, recording and also being able to write and or point out things that they are sharing with you makes the discussion they're having with you even greater, and the information they're sharing a lot more understandable as well. And that's on the recording. And when they're finished, they would check done, and they would be finished with their recording. So these are some features I think that your students might find helpful. I know my students find helpful when we're working for sure using these items for sure. So I hope you will try them out. And if there's some that you've used in a different way, I'd love for you to let us know.